So, Dr. Horne, I have been reading your book on Paul Robeson, and so I want to say, for one, thank you. Um, I'm a little late on it. I mean, I'm 25 years old, but I would love for you to outline the historical importance of Paul Robeson.
So he was born in central Jersey in 1898. We're approaching the 125th anniversary of his birth, expiring not far from there in Philadelphia, circa 1976. In between, he was a star athlete at Rutgers University in football, track and field, baseball, basketball, matriculated in law school, graduated from Columbia University, playing professional football. As you suggest, his spouse, Islanda, pushes him onto the stage where he becomes a renowned singer and actor. His performance of Shakespeare's Othello is considered to be the gold standard to this very day. He expatriates to London for most of the 1920s and 1930s and becomes a star of cinema as well. But he is attracted to the left, not least by his friend and comrade, who also wrote a book about William Patterson. This is a time of the rise of fascism. This is also the time of the establishment of a socialist country in Moscow. He's attracted to the latter in order to destabilize the former. Those two forces meet on the battlefield in Spain during the Spanish Civil War, the late 1930s, and Robson performs for the progressive forces in Spain. But alas, as you may know, the virus of war is spreading in Europe, and Robson decides that he does not want to be trapped behind the lines of war and decides to come back home. When he comes back home in the early 1940s, the United States is in the process of joining the anti-fascist alliance itself to combat Hitler's Germany, Italian fascism, and ultimately Japanese militarism. And Robson is part of that struggle. Actually, as I say in my book, Facing the Rising Sun, helping to convince many Black Americans that they should not be pro-Tokyo, of which there were many, as I state in that book. In any case, he and the United States seemed to be on the same page until the end of World War II, when the United States launches the Red Scare against domestic radicalism, against domestic communists, socialists, and radicals, a process from which this movement has hardly recovered to this very day. Robson's a major victim of this dastardly process. His income falls from the six figures to the low four figures. The US authorities seize his passport, preventing him from leaving the country. Yet he engages once again in solidarity with the Black American struggle, aligning with the aforementioned William Patterson in filing a petition at the United Nations that charges the United States with genocide against Black people, putting US Jim Crow and apartheid in the spotlight, which causes, as I noted a moment or two ago, an agonizing and shambolic retreat of this horrific system. But Robeson pays the ultimate price, as does Patterson, who is jailed during the 1950s. Finally, international pressure, not least from India, because Robeson was quite conversant with Indian leaders such as Prime Minister Nehru, and they put pressure on the United States. His passport is returned. He immediately leaves, probably overdoes it. His health begins to deteriorate. His spouse dies. He retreats ultimately in the 1960s, to a self-imposed exile in Philadelphia. But it's fair to say that Robson, in many ways, was the tallest tree in our forest. He was familiar with many different languages. He oftentimes suggested that if he had not been pushed into singing and acting. He might have become a professor of languages at a small college, professor of philology, for example, and was a frequent donor when his salary was higher before the Red Scare to progressive and radical movements, a staunch union man, supporter of unionizing the workforce. And it's difficult to overestimate what our movement lost when Robson was pilloried and pulverized by the US authorities.